Hey, this is Obi, and this is my review of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. So, I thought I'd do a quick review in preparation for the release of the sequel, A Good Girl, Bad Blood, which comes out today when the video is going live. So, I thought I'd do a quick review for you. Just so you're aware, this is spoiler free, so if you haven't read the first book, that's fine. There's not going to be any spoilers in here. So, getting into it, I'll give you a quick rundown of the plot. So basically, the plot is a case that happened 5 years ago in which an ideal student and friend was murdered. So she was supposedly murdered by her boyfriend, and everyone, including the police and the whole of the town and the media, know that her boyfriend did it. The case is closed and it's 5 years has been. But unlike everyone else in the town, there's someone called Pippa, who's our protagonist, who isn't so convinced. She decides when the opportunity arises in her final year to do an EPQ, or for those of you who don't know what that is, so basically an extended research project basically. She decides to research the murder for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's the town's obsession. It's a small town. The only thing that's ever happened in this town is that murder, first of all. And second of all, she's not convinced that Sal, who's the boyfriend, was the murderer, sorry. So Pippa investigates the case, and she teams up with Sal, the murderer's brother, Ravi, and the two of them investigate this case. And as she gets deeper, it becomes evidently clear that Sal was not the murderer, um, and she dives further and further into this case. She starts unearthing some of the town's darkest secrets. And then the rest of the story almost becomes sort of a contest between Pippa and the murderer to see how far each of them will go to reach their goals. So essentially, Pippa to discover who the actual murderer was and sort of free Sal from this wrong judgment, but also the murderer trying to keep this case closed and no one discovering what actually happened. So, in short, my review of this book would, taking the catchphrase of Pippa, would be probably holy pepperoni. This book is incredible. I really, really like this. Murder mystery isn't typically my genre. I have read some, but most of them haven't gripped me, and definitely none of them have gripped me to the extent of this book has. I thought it was an exceptional murder mystery in general, but not just that. Holly Jackson's able to create a cast of likable and great characters, but also convey some really important messages for the YA audience. So, in short, I think this is a must-read if you're a teen, young adult, or just a murder mystery fan in general. So, getting into what I liked about this book, first of all, I'm going to mention all the characters. So, a criticism I've had of most murder mysteries is that aside from the detective and maybe their sidekick or assistant, I think most of the characters are pretty forgettable after that book or after that case. I don't really care about them after that, but I think this book definitely goes against that sort of notion or idea or trend. Holly Jackson is able to create, as I said, a whole cast of interesting characters. Starting off, obviously, with Pippa, the detective in this case. She's just a great character. I personally, as someone who doesn't always get very attached to characters, I get attached to characters. That's wrong to say I don't, but I don't sort of see myself in them. But Pippa was someone who I was able to see myself in, but also sort of aspire to be like, which was kind of in my head whilst I was reading this a running joke that I was aspiring to be like Pippa almost. She feels like a braver version of myself and someone I would want to be like and act like. But I definitely saw myself in her, and that made me get really emotionally attached to her, and that sort of helped the book along at those tense moments because I'm genuinely worried about the character in this case. I think Pip is an excellent character for just the audience in general. It sort of comes in with the messages as well and the important themes. But Pip handles things like drugs, drink, rape, those sort of themes. She handles them very well in a socially responsible way, and that's where that sort of aspiration comes from, to act like her in those scenarios when they arise. So she was an exceptional character and someone who I sort of felt for, and believed in. Um, but often murder mysteries have a captivating and slightly eccentric but very likable and charming detective. But I don't think this book definitely doesn't just have that. Also, her sidekick or assistant in this case is Ravi. The two of them together are extremely funny, or at least I think so anyway. There's no big lead up jokes, but it's just more off the cuff, sort of banter, quick comments or quick jokes, things like that, which just they just relieve the tension sometimes, and they make it a really enjoyable story in the down times when there's not any big reveals or there's not any big plot sort of leads or anything like that. The humour and the relationship between the two was really enjoyable to read, and it kept you reading even in those down moments. But aside from the two main characters, the whole cast of characters was great. Both of Pippa's pseudo father figures, for example, I thought were really great characters. So you had Elliot Ward, who was basically Pippa's best friend's father, and her stepdad as well. Both of those characters are very believable, and quite likable. I felt like anyway. They're quite humorous, and both of them had that sort of believable dad humour to them. Both of them were very funny, but the whole cast, and not just the main 2 or 3 or 4 characters, but everyone felt extremely believable, and very likable. And something I think Holly Jackson did extremely well was she never gave any character a bad rub of the green, if you could say that. She never unfairly treated any of the characters. She gave them their moments where they shined, or shone, sorry, and then gave them some moments where you doubted their character. And that was really great. It kept you guessing when there was those moments where there was a reveal. You were guessing who could be the culprit, who could be the murderer, and everyone was on the table, for me at least. I suspected a load of characters, and I wasn't sure who it could be. So I think that's really credit to how Holly Jackson wrote her characters and gave them a fair treatment, regardless. Aside from the characters, as I said before, the messages in this book are really great, especially for the audience, the YA audience. So as I said, they deal with some things like drink, drugs, rape, sort of themes like that, themes and messages like that. And I felt that Holly Jackson did that in a really socially responsible way. And when I was reading it, and reading these sort of moments, they never felt forced or preachy. They came up in the story naturally, and we saw some consequences, and we saw how Pippa, the protagonist, dealt with those scenarios. So I felt like that was really great for the YA audience, because so many people try to talk about these themes and they just miss the mark totally. It just feels so forced. But I think it's great, again, great credit to Holly Jackson for writing these in a socially responsible but also sort of believable and way in which the YA audience will be more responsive to, because she's not attempted to be preachy or not attempted to tell you X, Y, or Z, but she's given an honest reflection of those scenarios. So I really credit her for that. And then, final thing, I would talk about this book forever, but I'm just going to narrow it down to 3 positives. The twists and turns, the sort of the staples of the murder mystery genre, Holly Jackson has knocked out the park. She's smashed, basically. You can tell she's someone who loves this genre, because removing sort of my emotions at least towards the characters, and removing those messages or what I took away from them and what I took away from those themes. It's an excellent murder mystery by itself. You know, the twists and turns are there throughout the book, and they always kept you guessing. There were some points which Holly Jackson sort of lent into the murder mystery tropes, but then sort of went back on them and flipped them on their head, or she sort of led you onto one way because of what you sort of know from murder mystery genre, but went another way. There was plenty of opportunities where, you know, she defied the tropes but also lent into them, and it's a great murder mystery in general. I personally, again, talking from my experience, I don't usually get, or at least the easiest way to say it is, I've never had such a strong rush of nervousness, excitedness, fear, um, anxiety, those sorts of feelings whilst reading this book. Um, at one point, I'm not going to tell you when, but I got the biggest rush of adrenaline I've ever got from reading a book. And that was not just because of the characters and I was worried about them or what Pippa might discover, but just the writing in general, the twists and turns. It felt very climactic, and I sort of got that rush. So again, I think as a standalone murder mystery, taking out all the sort of YA genre stuff, it's an excellent murder mystery in general. Um, so it's not just limited to the YA audience. So if I was going to talk about negatives or criticisms, because I feel like that's important, no book is perfect, or at least not one that I've read. So I do think it's important to talk about that sort of thing. But although this may sort of sound like a cop out, for me personally, that's so difficult to do when I love this book so much. Often with a book like this, I may have some criticisms down the line, but at the moment, since it's still fresh in my mind, I'm so captivated by it. I love it so much. So it is hard to pick some criticisms for me personally. I think some things which in other people they may not like about this book. Firstly, for me at first at least, I didn't like the EPQ or the style of the book, should I say, because what Holly Jackson has done is she's provided some screenshots of Pippa's EPQ or some mock drafts of Pippa's EPQ, and at first that felt quite gimmicky to do that, to me at least. I've done an EPQ and that felt like, to me it just felt a bit gimmicky at first, and I wasn't too keen on it, but pretty quickly I realised it wasn't just that, it was a good way to sort of get a better understanding of the character, get an understanding of her internal thoughts, and get to know her more on a personal level. So very quickly, my sort of hesitation towards that and the style of the book, providing screenshots of an EPQ, they sort of went away for me. But certain people, that may put them off the book, and they may think that's gimmicky, and they can't get round that, and they can't avoid that, and their sort of apprehension about that, which is fine. I had those sort of feelings at first, but as I said, very quickly for me, I realised that I actually quite enjoyed it, and it felt very unique and fresh. So just to recap, basically, I think whatever grading system you use, this is 5 star, A star, whatever grading system you want. I think this is a must read for anyone who's into the YA genre, any teen or young adult. I think this is an excellent book for and a must read, but also those who are into murder mystery, because this is also an excellent murder mystery as well. I'm extremely excited for Good Girl Bad Blood, which is released today, and I can't wait to read it because of those characters who I love so much, and who I've become so sort of captivated by. So thank you for watching my review. If you've enjoyed, a like and a subscription would be very much appreciated. But also, I'll leave my Twitter in the description, and you can either catch me there or in the comment section to discuss Good Girl's Guide to Murder, or a Good Girl, Bad Blood, the sequel. So thank you for watching. I'll see you later.